Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's episode 92 of the Audible Farm Podcast, and this episode is brought to you by Couchtown Coffee. Couchtown Coffee is roasted right here in Iowa. They make every order specifically for whoever orders it. So if you order coffee from Couchtown, they're roasting it for you, and then they'll ship it to your house. Nothing better than that. If you want to check it out, go to www.couchtowncoffee.com. Find a coffee you like, and when you make an order, you can save 20% just because you listen to this podcast. And that's another reason I love Couchtown Coffee. Couchtown, it's like all the coffee I've ever been drinking for the last year or so has been Couchtown with very few exceptions. And I'll tell you what, when I don't drink Couchtown, I can totally tell. So check it out, www.couchtowncoffee.com. If you make an order this week, you can save 20% by entering the code word BRUTAL. Brutal is the code word, and it'll save you 20%. Thanks, Couchtown. Why is the code word brutal this week? Because I'm sitting down with Jeremy Ober. Jeremy Ober is back on the podcast, and he's back in Iowa. We discuss all sorts of things, such as his winter travels down to Texas and coming back to Iowa just to have no shows to play due to the pandemic, and how everything's kind of affected him. It's really good to be able to sit down with him and talk with him again, because it's one of those things. He was such a staple in the area, and then he was gone for a while, and now he's back, and the shows are starting up again. And if you want to check it out, I mean, we talk about that in the podcast, coming back to playing shows and how things have changed. It's been a really good time sitting down talking with Jeremy. It's been a while since I have talked to him, so I hope you guys enjoy this one. I had fun sitting down talking with him. This is episode 92 with Jeremy Ober.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
All right, so what's going on? Mr. Jeremy Ober's sitting down today. I haven't talked to you in a while. You were actually one of the first people I talked to.
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you were easily like one of the first 20 people I talked to for the podcast. So it was one of those things where I knew you were pretty popular around the area, and I'd known you for a long time, and it was kind of a fun thing because you were like with me when I was still essentially troubleshooting how I was trying to do all this.
Huh.
But as of late, like this winter you went down to Texas and played some down there, and that was a pretty cool thing because, I mean, it's not something that too many people around this area do. So I guess what's the grand consensus on going down to Texas? Was it an enjoyable time?
I had a good time with it.
Yeah. What kind of stuff did you do down there? Like, did you go down there knowing places where you could play, or were you just kind of going down there a little bit blind and getting your foot in the door where you could?
I was fully blind. I didn't know anybody down there. I lucked out the very first night that I was there. I lucked out because I went to 6th Street, which is kind of the main music drag in Austin, and walked into a bar called Poor Choices. And
is that like pour a drink?
Yeah, like pour a drink. Yeah.
Nice. All right.
And the owner happened to be there. And so I talked to him for a second, but he seemed pretty indifferent. And so he told me to talk to the bartender. So I went and talked to her. He's like, it's up to her if she wants you to come in on her shift. So she's like, well, come in on, Monday or whatever at 3 o'clock and do a 3-hour set, and we'll plug you into the house PA and
oh, cool.
do all that, and we'll see how it goes. So I did that, and she was happy enough with this. So she told me I could come and play anytime I wanted. Because they didn't have any music, and she said that the bar was kind of hurting because every bar on that street has basically music all day, starting at like 3 in the afternoon until close.
Oh, jeez.
Act after act after act. So,
that's like 12 hours straight of music. That's
most of the places.
That's pretty insane considering a lot of places around here. I mean, you might find people doing a stretch from like 8 or 9 until bar close, but you're adding another 6+ hours onto that.
It wasn't the same act. They'd have 3 acts a day.
Oh,
all the
okay.
bars did, yeah.
That's still a lot of time. That's 4 hours each.
Mm-hmm.
That's still a lot of time to soak up for somebody. At least, in my opinion, I couldn't do it. So.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, that was one of the things, though. Like, you'd played pretty much everywhere around Iowa. I mean, we're talking in the northern half of Iowa, you pretty much went west coast to east coast. I mean, it's pretty much that. And you're one of the musicians that is out there every single weekend, it seems like, playing a show, if not Friday and Saturday and stuff like that. Was, this is one of those instances, I'm assuming, where you kind of got your chops up here and you'd kind of seen everything that was here, and why not just kind of go see what's somewhere else for a while?
I guess. I don't know.
No.
Had, like, warm weather had played a role in it. Seeing somewhere new, played a big role in it.
Oh, nice. So it's kind of like a perfect storm situation for you.
Yeah, and I was just kind of in a place personally to where I didn't really have anything on the horizon planned. Like, when you're planless, it's kind of like, well, just go do something without a plan then, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it's better than just sitting around not doing anything. I mean, that's something I will have to say for you, because you've always seemed to keep really busy in the music scene. For example, we covered a little bit of this in the first interview, but I remember sitting down playing music when I was 18, 17 years old, just a youngster or whatever, and I ended up somehow contacting you. Came in contact with me or something like that, and I had a band and we played punk music, but you wanted to know if we had some original songs that we could mix in with our other ones, if we could play live shows and things like that. And I just didn't have my chops up at the time, but I can't go a few weeks talking to musicians without somehow hearing your name or about how they played a show with you over the last 10, 15 years, somewhere around the area.
Yeah.
That's it's always been one of the things. So you've always been really, really busy, and you've always found something to occupy your time.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. You ended up going down there and finding a place right away that was willing to have you. Did you play at any other places while you were down there?
Yeah, but every place that I ever got was blind luck, because that was basically I stopped at every club on 6th Street while I was there, and they were all booked for months. So just happening to walk into the right bar at the right time the first night I was there kind of saved my ass in a lot of respects. Then I did go to an open jam at one of the suburbs of Austin, Buda, Texas, and beautiful venue there called Bucks, and played the open jam, and so they invited me to play a show there on another night, so I got to play that club.
Cool.
And then I got my door into a brewery too. Outside of that, it was basically just Poor Choices every week, and then sidewalks every day.
That's pretty cool, though. I mean, like, just coming from what I would think of my own personal skill level, like, I would be so nervous to just go out there and let other people hear everything I've got. And that's like one of the things I always think is funny. People are like, are you a musician? It's like, I play music. I don't know if I'm a musician in the aspect where, people like you and maybe Clint Riedel are out there just bearing your soul for everybody. I mean, there's so many people around this area and all over Iowa that are more than willing to write music and sing it and play it, and even on your own. For example, I talked to a friend of mine recently, and something about him, he was saying he played his first acoustic solo show ever. And he's like, I can't describe it. And I said, it's kind of like going to high school without your clothes on. There's nowhere to hide. Everyone's going to see everything about you. You can't hide anything, and you're never going to be able to,
Right.
I mean, like, that's one of the crazy things. Like, have you always been that way about your music? Is that something you had to work up to get, I guess, some sort of confidence in your own abilities, or how does that all shake down? Because I'm always curious how people, I guess, get to be, comfortable being on stage.
I don't think I ever really had an issue with confidence per se. I mean, I remember the very first show I ever played with my first band. I was antsy. I don't know if you'd call it like nervousness or something. It was something, but I wasn't like nervous per se. I don't even remember what the first solo show I played was. I mean, I remember playing at the Moreland Bar for like $100 a night when I was 18 or something. I walked in and they're like, "How much do you charge?" And I was like, "I don't know." Like, so I have no idea. And I'd sit there and play for 4 hours, and I don't remember it being a nerve-wracking experience, because I think at the time I was just full of piss and vinegar enough to the point to where I just wanted to go make noise, and that was fine. If someone would let me, I would do it.
Yeah, that makes sense totally. I mean, like, from generally just speaking from an odds standpoint too, it's like the odds of somebody else being able to come up here and
play the instrument that you have better than you are pretty low, just on the simple fact it's like how many people in here actually play the guitar. But also you're the one playing the show, so they don't get a say in it. They don't get to sit up there and then play their stuff and try and quote unquote show you up.
Right. I suppose, even though that's true, like, most people in the audience aren't going to be able to play anything, there's still an aspect of, are you making noise that people are going to find desirable to sit there and listen to?
Ooh, totally. Yeah.
Because you can do a lot of stuff that they don't do, but that doesn't mean that they're going to want to listen to it for 4 hours or even an hour, while they're sitting there trying to enjoy their beer,
Oh, gosh.
You have to make the atmosphere enjoyable.
Oh, yeah. That totally has something to be said, too, because if they were allowing you to sit there and play for 4 hours, it's not like you were chasing people away,
I would imagine not.
I mean, believe it or not, that's a thing that sometimes can happen at certain venues for certain musicians, depending on like what's going on.
I have cleared a bar before.
Yeah, it's
that wrong crowd. It wasn't my crowd.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not something that like you want to say you're like proud of or whatever. Nobody should be proud of like clearing a bar or something. But it's so weird when you're stuck in a situation where you're like, oh, this isn't my space, And a good example of that would be like I play in a punk band in Des Moines, but we're like pretty heavy on the punk end of the spectrum. So sometimes we'll get tossed in with like metal bands and stuff, and it's not quite metal, And sometimes the metal people will go out and get a drink or go to the bathroom or whatever else they want to do because we're up there playing, And
yeah.
It happens sometimes. Is that like? Did you ever sit and think about that? Like your first time. I don't want to say like bombing, but was that like a setback for you at all, or was that just something where you just chalked it up to wrong crowd, wrong place because you've already had experiences that were positive?
Yeah, almost always. The only times that I ever remember that happening is with the Republic, and I was always confident enough in our material to be like, well, we're not bad. Like our songs aren't bad.
Totally not.
Like maybe we have nights. I've never had a show to where I could look back and soberly think, oh, that was just a train wreck. There were shows that weren't great, that maybe something happened, we didn't play our best or whatever. But most of the time it was just wrong crowd. There was one show we played in Iowa Falls. This was, I think, with the first lineup of the band. Or not Iowa Falls, Iowa City. And we didn't know anything about it. We knew that there was a band opening up for us. We went in blind. And the place was like... I mean, it was a bar, but it more resembled like a tea shop. Like it was this very trendy place. Like we walk in, like basically every other guy's wearing a turtleneck.
Oh, wow.
And at the time, we're just like a hard rock band. And I was like, oh man, this isn't good. And then the first band that gets up there is a Dave Matthews tribute band.
Oof.
And they kill it. But the crowd is just losing their shit over it. Like they're eating it up, and like they want an encore, and it's like, oh well, we can't. The next up is Brutal Republic, and we're standing there waiting to load on, and they just start booing us.
Oh no!
and so, like, and at that, while we were sitting before any of that happened, I was like, well, we got a couple like ballady kind of songs. We can start with that and see if we can win them over. But by the time like that happened, I was just so pissed. By the time we got on stage, I was like, heaviest song we got,
Yep.
And so we just went in balls to the wall, and by the last note, the last like 3 people were walking out, and the last lyric of the song was "I hope you choke," and the guy like turned around and was like, "I hope you choke," and then we got in a yelling match. I'm like, "F you, Junior," keep walking, and by our second song. The bartender was sitting there. He was running sound, and by the third song, he just started putting chairs up on tables.
Oh man, were you guys like the headliner of the night then?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's such a rough situation to be put into because it's just like somebody here didn't do their homework. Like it's back in the day, it was a lot harder to study who's been at now you can just look at Facebook event histories and you're like, they've booked these types of bands, I'll fit in here easy.
Right.
Back in the day, that wasn't a possibility.
Yeah. And now I'm not. Now I wouldn't even be worried about it because we have so much material that we can fit on almost any bill. We could go and play an hour set that would fit whoever's going to come after us if we had to.
That's probably one of the coolest things about, I guess, you as Brutal Republic when you can even do it solo acoustic, but like you as Brutal Republic with Trevino and, oh my gosh, I'm going to mess it up.
Fairy.
Yep. I don't even want to say what I was thinking. Yeah, sorry, Jordan. No, that's God damn it, Caleb.
Yeah.
God damn it, that's what I was thinking. So that. Anyways, but yeah, you guys have the ability to sit down and play stuff that would literally appeal to almost any audience that would show up to a show, aside from like, operatic theme type stuff. I remember seeing you at Tim Buck Brew once, and you played, I want to say Mardi Gras, which is not it's not even one of your songs originally as Brutal, but I mean it's yours in the sense that you played in another band.
Yeah, we do play it in Lone Tree.
Yep.
I basically consider every song I write to be a Brutal Republic song.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the Republic will lay that down and record it at some point,
Oh,
and
cool.
we play it live and all that jazz.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we initially played that song live before Lone Tree ever did.
Oh, no way.
So yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And that song's not like heavy by any means. I mean, it's not.
No.
I mean, that's like, I remember seeing that song and saw you guys play that there, and I was like, dude, this is so killer. And then that was the night they had a bunch of mosquitoes there. If you remember that night.
Yeah.
But then I remember like the later the night got, the music just kept getting heavier, and it felt like it fit the atmosphere so perfectly for like how a night should go based on music you would listen to if you were like just at a bar anyways,
Yeah, and that's kind of the goal. I mean, I personally think we could probably fine tune it a little bit more, because we never have a set list right now.
Oh, wow.
And so basically we just go up and one of us calls off a song and we start into it, But the goal is to progress, do something, because when you're starting at 9 o'clock and going till 1, and you don't have an opening act or anything, the idea is to step in and give them something that's just nice to listen to, ease your way into it.
Yeah.
And as the night goes on, you start, maybe playing, about the middle of the night, you start playing songs that they can dance to, something, you know. Because if you can get girls up dancing, like, that's going to keep the guys there, and then by the end of the night, about the last hour of our set is our heavy set. And so hopefully people are just, feeling good enough that they can get into it, Sometimes, it's not always a situation to where they're on their feet and just losing it over it,
Yeah.
But I mean, I always walk away feeling that we showed, at least most of them a good time.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought about like the actual psychology that would be involved in like planning a set list, but like just to have availability of you three to be able to call out a song and play it. That means that you have to have enough songs to cover 4 hours, and then you have to be able to remember all of them, or to be like, dude, we played this one already. Like it's been 3 hours. Did we play this once? Or I mean, I was even just thinking, like, the people that are going to be at any venue at 9 o'clock are going to be probably different than the, people that would be there at, like, midnight. So it's kind of crazy how, like, now that the more I think about this, the more it all actually makes so much sense. I don't know why I didn't think of it initially, but
yeah, if we took the stage and did the material we do in the last hour, and that was like our first hour, we'd probably run half the crowd out. If you just, unless they're there to see a hard rock or metal band,
Yep.
But when you're playing for a 4-hour show, like, you're playing there because people want to listen to music in general, like,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that, even if you don't run them out, you just went through all your most blazing stuff in the first hour.
Yeah, you can't go up any higher from there.
So all you're going to do is bring the mood down from there, and bring the energy down, So the idea is to end with the most energy as you can and end on that note.
That totally makes sense, because if you flip-flopped it, you'd be like essentially like putting people to down to sleep by the end of the set. So like I mean, that's crazy. Like, starting out with the conversation we did, I didn't think I would actually come to something where I'd be thinking about it this much. And I'm sure there's tons of bands that are more than capable of applying the same technique to what they're doing. I mean, it's probably no secret to some of the people that can actually cover 4 hours. I was talking a little bit beforehand with another musician about how I don't know if I could cover 4 hours if I had to. I don't know if it's something that I probably could if I absolutely had to, but it's not something right now that would be something I would want to do. So just the fact that people like you could do that is pretty mind-blowing in and of itself.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of it is just that I've been working for so long, and, eventually you just accrue that much material that
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, most of it was just by happenstance to where, you know, probably most of, like, if I sit down and do an acoustic 4-hour show, I would say the majority of that material is stuff I've been playing since I was 20.
All right.
You know, because at that point in my life, like, it was like, oh, this song would be fun to play. This song would be fun to play. You know, if I heard a song that I like, I'd learn it just for the fun of it. You know, and then it's like, well, I can play this if I go and book a show.
Mm-hmm.
And now I never do that. You know, if I'm gonna take the time to learn a song and work it up, it has to be something I'm gonna use. I never learn anything for fun anymore, which maybe is a detriment. Maybe not. I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
It just is what it is. You know.
Yeah.
You know,
But-
and you have to remember all those lyrics and all that stuff. You know, so. I'm kind of a big subscriber that I just don't clutter my mind with anything that requires too much attention. You know, like if it's another subject or something like that, because, you know, at any given time, I have to be able to recall lyrics and notes from, you know, roughly 12 hours of music.
Yeah.
A catalog of 12 hours, you know, between the two bands and my acoustic show, there's 4 hours of material for all 3 of those things.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like I have to be able to remember that. So I can't go out, you know, I can't get into like wood crafting and start start remembering all the ins and outs of that, you know.
Oh my gosh.
So
Yeah, I mean that totally makes sense though, because I mean music is what you have done in your adult life, pretty much your whole entire adult life. I mean,
yeah.
you've been not only a musician, but you also teach lessons.
Yeah.
Is that actually so you go to Texas, you come back, there's the coronavirus thing, and everything pretty much shuts down.
Yeah.
Was that like right when you came back, or?
I had one show when I got back that I was able to perform, then everything else got canceled after that.
Oh my gosh! How about, and that made me think, like lessons. Do you still have the availability to do lessons? Did you do like Skype lessons or?
No, I basically shut down lessons for the duration of it, until Chris was comfortable opening up the store again, where I get at Eighth Note where I teach.
Shout out
And-
Eighth Note Music in Fort Dodge.
Yep. And
Chris Carr.
which it's not open. The store is still not open. It's you know, open by appointment only, but open to lessons. And so, you know, but I've kind of streamlined my lessons down anyway. My schedule's pretty relaxed. I teach Tuesdays and Thursdays as of right now, and I'm probably from here on out going to be a little bit more selective about the students I take rather than taking everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll take a student on a trial basis, and then if after a month it's like they're not practicing or something, I'll just cut them loose. You know,
Yeah.
where I used to just kind of suffer through it. You know, if a kid didn't want to be there, it's like, well, you know, you never know.
Yeah.
And there's been plenty of kids that have surprised me. You know, there's been a handful of kids where it's like, oh, this kid's never going to get into this, and then eventually it's like their main thing for at least a stretch of their life.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
That's
so.
like one of the wildest things I think about. Like, 'cause I taught lessons too, just to the point where I can teach beginners stuff. You know, anything up to intermediate level, I'd probably pass them on to somebody else. But like, I would teach lessons to some people, and it's like you said, eventually you run into a student every now and then. It's like it's not practicing or whatever, and it's like, you know, maybe their parents prepaid for lessons already, and I mean, even if you try and convey it to the parent, you're just kind of like, hey, just trying to let you know, like, it seems like your kid could use a little extra practice, and sometimes it is kind of tough to do that, just to keep doing the lessons, you know. And I feel like that was probably the toughest part, was like putting the energy into it just to have somebody not enjoy it was probably like the hardest part, you know. And I get it. I mean, I was a kid that, like, my parents would sign me up for something or whatever, and I'd be like, I don't want to do this, and they'd be like, just go ahead and try it, you know. And that's all they really wanted you to do, was try it.
Yeah.
And I was one of those kids that was just like, no, this is dumb. I mean, that's kind of how I functioned. So I get the concept, but like you said, it is kind of tough to have a lesson with you know, somebody that doesn't necessarily want to have one. But just, I mean, for every one of those, you've got, I would say, at least 5 to 10 students that really, really emphatically enjoy playing the guitar. So I mean, it's not a big proportion of people that you feel like you're stuck there with. Have you
Yeah.
ever had like a student that really, really surprised you? For example, one of mine would be, I taught a lady that was retired, and her husband had died, and she went down to Texas in the winter time, and she wanted to try and play at a jam night down there. She thought it'd be kind of fun. So like, she asked a couple of the people there, "Can I bring an acoustic guitar and play some songs with you? I don't know how to play, but I can figure out how to play if you tell me like what songs I can sit in on." So she was given 5 songs, and she learned them all in like a month. It was insane. Granted, she didn't have anything else to do, so she played the guitar all the time. And that was probably the most surprising thing ever, because eventually she got so good it was just like she went down for a winter and came back and was like, "I don't know if I can teach you anything else. Like, you've learned anything I can teach you easily, you've already learned." So
Oh, cool.
I mean, have you ever had anybody like that that's just mind-blowing, like somebody that was really young that picked it up really quick, or a student that you didn't think, at first, and then all of a sudden it was like they're getting so good at this, it's insane?
Oh yeah. I've had students to where, either by lack of or apparent lack of interest, or sometimes just for lack of like natural talent, like where you run into someone who just like for whatever reason doesn't have any inkling of how to gather a rhythm, like like they're just not a rhythmic bone in their body, and you're thinking like, this guy's never gonna get it, but yeah, if they stick at it long enough, I mean, if they want it, they're gonna get it. Basically, like they didn't all blow my minds, but I've had so many students get beyond a point to where I ever dreamed they would get. I stopped predicting long ago,
Oh yeah.
So it's like, even if you have some kid who just isn't into it, you just never know, because I've seen the exceptions to the rules. But
Yeah.
I mean, usually you're right if you make those predictions, but
not always.
Yeah, I was wrong enough that I stopped making the predictions.
That's that's crazy though. It's one of those things, if you live and learn long enough, eventually you've learned enough to know that you can't, you're not going to know. The only plan is to make sure that the main thing is the main thing, but you got to know that plans don't always go according to plans. So
Right. Yep.
That's pretty crazy though too. Like I've thought about like some of the stuff as far as like teaching guitar lessons. One of the coolest things I ever had was a kid showed up with what I can only just call lovingly as a Walmart toy guitar.
Yeah.
It's an actual functioning guitar. You can put strings on it and it works.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, it's not intonated very well, and I mean, doesn't sound good even at all, but notes still come out of it, so it still works. It was a very cheap, affordable thing for him. But he played this thing so much that it started like the frets were falling apart because they were made out of composite wood and stuff like that. And we'd get done playing lessons and his hands would be all black because he'd be just shredding this guitar all up.
Cool.
And I mean, that was one of the coolest things ever, to see somebody play a guitar so much that it was like falling apart in their hands. You know?
Just imagine when he gets a real guitar in his hand, what he'll do with it, And then it just comes and lights out.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Can you imagine, like, did you always have like nice-ish guitars, or do you remember the first time you went from having what I would call a lower level guitar, because there's nothing wrong with them really, but once you get into like a high-end guitar, like your first time you put your hands on one, you're like, holy cow.
Yeah, so my first guitar was a BC Rich Warlock.
Yeah.
It was just this ridiculous looking thing, you know what it is,
Yep.
and all that jazz.
Yep.
And I thought it was like the coolest thing when I was like 15. I was like, ooh, I'm gonna get that. So by the time I was 16, I'd saved up enough and bought it. And I played with that for 2 years. And then I bought Grace, my main guitar, that Les Paul. And so that was the first like really nice guitar I ever owned, and that's been my main guitar ever since. But yeah, it's night and day difference. Yeah, and it's kind of a shame, because when you get these lower level guitars, they're hard to play. They're not the easiest things to play a lot of the time, and so when you have these people who never picked up a guitar or something, and they have to learn on something where you're working so hard to play it anyway, then once you give them a guitar that plays nice and sounds nice and everything, it's just like, man, it makes it so much easier for any player.
Yeah.
Once I have students that go up to a mid-level guitar, they just can't believe it. Like every time, they're like, "I cannot believe this. This is what I've been missing." And it's just like a $500 guitar.
Yeah, I mean, and $500 guitar, like it's even to you or me, it's still an expensive guitar.
That's money.
It's a lot of money. So I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at. But at the same rate, like you said, if you go from something that's like $150 to the $200 range to like a $500, we're talking new cost, because you can get them used for cheaper. But if you don't know what you're looking for, then you don't know what you're looking for. It's kind of a tough thing. But like I said, like I remember my first guitar was a Squier Strat. I bought it or got it given to me for Christmas. It came with one of those like Frontman amps, and it was in like one of those big stand-up boxes, and everything came in one, and I I played the thing until I was starting to wear off part of the finish on the back of the neck. It was starting to like get torn up from where I was playing, and I played it so much. Not that I was like the best or anything, but I remember buying just an Epiphone Les Paul.
Yep.
It was one of their, I guess you'd say, like nicer models of the Les Paul. So it was pretty nice upgrade, and I still remember just being like, this thing actually feels like, a real guitar. Not that a Squier Strat is not, but
Yeah.
it's a pretty mind-blowing thing. I've actually been playing a Squier Strat the last couple days just because I guess I'm probably like anyone else. You have one guitar that's always sitting there ready to play,
Yep.
and sometimes you put it in a box and get the other guitar out or whatever.
Yep.
But I've been working on a guitar, and I've been working on a Squier Strat for somebody, and that was one that's just been sitting there. Like I've just been playing it and making minor adjustments on it to get it all intonated. But
Right on.
it's like you said, I've been playing it, and you've noticed it's harder to play than say like a nice Ibanez or something.
Yep.
It's pretty crazy. I bet it's kind of like driving a car, even though like I guess it might not be the best example because it's not everybody. It makes sense that you wouldn't want to spend the money on like a BMW for your first car.
Yeah.
But I guess it's one of those cool things though too. Like if you get somebody that's just dedicated enough, they'll see that like all that hard work is going to pay off as soon as you upgrade your guitar.
Right.
That's it's a pretty crazy thing. You've never been one to really acquire too much gear, or I don't ever see you with like 1,000 pedals on stage. You're not a very. Your signal chain's pretty basic. It's just a guitar and maybe a pedal. I don't even know if you have a pedal.
No, I don't use any pedals. So my mindset is either the amp does what I want it to do or it doesn't. So
Oh yeah.
So I wouldn't spend money on any amp to where I had to put pedals, add pedals to it. That's just and that's just how I like to play. I don't like to worry about stomping on things when I'm on stage and all that jazz. I'd rather, if I need to do anything with a setting, I'll just use my volume knobs. Basically, if I want to back off gain without losing all the gain, that's all done with volume knobs and stuff. So yeah, I've had pretty much the same setup ever since I was 18. The same exact amp, same speaker cabinet.
Nice.
My speaker cabinet is a 300 watt rated Fender that I bought for $300 off my buddy.
Nice.
And then I bought the 5150 new, so that was like $1,000.
Yeah.
So, it's $1,300 in that amp. I've changed the power tubes once.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of that, I haven't done anything to it outside of just abuse it horribly, and it just never stops working. I've dumped 3 beers down the top of it, setting up, and the beer spills and goes down on the tubes and stuff. Last time we did that, we were in Des Moines a couple years back, and during the whole show, we could smell the beer just burning off the tubes, the whole show and everything.
Yeah.
But it never stops working, And just the other day, I was unpacking my van, and I found that I loaded my stuff in all stupid, and I accidentally stuck a mic stand through one of the speakers in my cabinet, like straight through it. So there's just a gaping hole in it.
Oh man.
And a couple days later, we were doing a live stream with the Republic, and it's like, well, let's see how it sounds.
Yep.
And it actually almost even sounds better, like with this hole in the speaker. So it's like, oh man, I'm not gonna do anything to it now. Like, I'll just let it be.
Well, that's kind of cool though. Like that like accidental modification actually like is now going to lend itself to the tone that you're going to create.
Yeah, it doesn't sound bad at all. So
That's pretty wild though. Like I've gone through different phases of like I remember I read it online somewhere. Someone said some musicians have GAS, which is gear acquisition syndrome.
okay. Yeah.
So like I've gone through different time spans in my life where it's like I want to try some pedals out, and then before you know it, you got like 10 pedals.
Gotcha.
You only use 4 of them, and you're like, but I got these other ones in case I want to use, and you never use them. And
Yeah, I don't have that itch. It's funny because as much as time as I spend in a music store, I never screw around with any of the pedals. They don't interest me. Gear in general just doesn't interest me. like strangely enough, like I can walk into a Guitar Center that is lined up with all like the sweetest Les Pauls you could imagine, and I don't even really ever have a desire to pull them down to try them out. Because to me it's just like, well, I'm not gonna get it. I don't have any money because I'm a full-time musician, so I can't afford it. So there's no sense in me even looking at it. Like I'm sure there is a guitar up there that I'm just gonna love, but I'm not interested at all. when it comes to gear, it just doesn't do anything for me.
I bet that actually like lends something to like what I would just call like your skill level, because I mean you got to think about this. How many hours did I waste looking up like what does this pedal do that this one doesn't? What chip are they using in the op amp section of this pedal?
Well,
and like I'm looking up boutique pedals and handmade ones and
right, and I mean, there's nothing against it. I'm not saying anything against it, because a lot of great players, some of my favorite players, use tons of effects, on it, and it lends itself to their playing. They're that type of player. I'm just not that type of player,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not. I have a hard enough time just EQing the 3 knobs on my amp. I'm not a knob turner. Like I get it somewhere close and then I go. If you give me a piece of wood with strings on it, I can do something. If you give me a bunch of gear, chances are I'm not gonna do any. I'm not gonna be able to tweak it enough to even make it sound great.
Yeah.
So it's just not. That's not my thing.
Well, I mean that's something to be said though. Like I mean, you probably spent all of that time actually playing the guitar then, instead of trying to figure out like how to properly tweak an amp to make this sound better, and I want to bring a little bit more of this out. So
yeah, I suppose. I mean, I could definitely spend more time practicing guitar. That's for sure. I would probably within my life, maybe outside like the first 2 years, But most of my time with a guitar in my hand is just spent songwriting, for the most part, or performing, and so that's about the gist of what happens when a guitar's in my hand. Maybe once a month I'll actually sit down and like practice, But every day I pick up a guitar and do the whole same routine, go through all my scales and warm ups, run through some songs, just to keep them fresh in my mind.
That makes sense though. I mean, it's kind of like riding a bike though, in the sense that like you can still ride a bike pretty cool and you got all these awesome tricks that you've learned, but just because you haven't learned how to do this one other trick that somebody else did once, it doesn't mean that you're not an awesome bike rider, and that's I think it's really crazy to think that, I mean, like you said, there's so many people that have use effects, or I mean it's almost something that every single person uses in their line, and it's something that you don't even notice that you don't have them, and that's probably the craziest thing about it it's if I was to play certain shows and I just went straight into an amp and then didn't use any effects or whatever, it would be kind of like weird. Most people wouldn't notice, but if like I've been to shows before where I forget to click something on or whatever, and we're doing a jam session and I don't have any reverb or delay, and it's just like, this sounds just like honky when everything's supposed to sound like real kind of like wavy and dreamy, and I don't have any effects on there, so it does, it's kind of naked, but you're not playing anything that's like, hey yo jam band man, we're just gonna do like a 9-minute solo here and just do it on the fly. You're not doing anything like that too much.
I mean, we can, but like I'm a big, one of my top 3 bands is like the Allman Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, to where they're able to, I guess they rely on their passages and the way that the song flows, rather than because I mean, I don't even know if you ever even hear and like Dickie Betts or Dwayne Allman or anything ever use like a wah pedal or anything. I mean, maybe they do in a track or here or there, but I've never noticed it. Like
Yeah.
But for the most part, they have their tone. One's playing slide, one's not. And then they go with it. And that's how it rolls. So that's always kind of once I got into the Allman Brothers, which was pretty quick, after a couple years of playing guitar, like that probably had the most effect on my style of playing, I would say.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I could definitely see it now that you said that. Allman Brothers were always those ones that, when I first started realizing like what was going on in the guitar and like what majors and minors and stuff were going on, I was like, these guys are pretty much just playing blues in major, which is almost mind-blowing, to me, that's a thing that can happen,
Yeah, and it's organic. That's the cool thing about it, because you can listen to a studio version of an Allman Brothers song, and then you can listen to umpteen different live versions, and it's the same song, same basic arrangement and all that stuff, but you might have like a 6-minute version and a 30-minute version, from different shows. And even in the studio, you can tell how organic it is, because you can hear someone doing a solo, and they're known for like their harmonies and all that stuff. Well, they do all those harmonies, at least some of them, on the fly, because that guitarist hasn't composed a solo. He's just playing, and if he likes the take, they keep it.
Yep.
Well, you can hear the other guitar player sitting there listening. You can hear one passage, and you can hear the guitar like lightly playing along in the background. And then by the second time through that passage, it's like boom,
Yep.
like nailed, harmonies on the other guitar. And he had to figure that out on the fly in the studio while they're doing the take.
Gosh.
Yeah, it's another kind of monster altogether. Bands
Yeah.
like that.
I mean, that's a testament to how well they know each other and their like musical direction and where the person's probably gonna end up taking their solo and
Right.
things.
Yep.
I mean, I can only liken that a little bit to, like Three Finger Betty. At the end of every show, we usually play a jam, and it's usually kind of basically, generally speaking, like the same jam. We have like a first part, we've got like a little breakdown, we've got like an end part. There might be some other nonsense going on, but it's not overly complex as to what we're doing. The only thing is, it's a lot of like two people soloing. And when John and I are soloing with each other, it's one of those things you learn, like, we can't all be soloing on the high notes next to each other because that doesn't sound good, So you start to learn, like, I got to stay as far away from wherever this guy's playing on the guitar as possible, but still make it sound good and kind of guess where they're going with it. And
Well, yeah, if you listen to Lynyrd Skynyrd, it's the same thing. There's 3 guitars in that band, when they were in their heyday,
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, they all have to know how to stay out of each other's way, but still contribute something to the song, and then that's the main thing.
That's brilliant. I remember talking to Scott Dahl when I was like, I'm going to be playing, I was playing the jam night with you at Patty's maybe about a year and a half ago over Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I'm kind of nervous. I don't know what to do. Like, what's the best advice you can give me? And he's just like, know when to stay out of the way and know when it's your turn to be in the way. And it's pretty much generally like that, because it's like, oh man, that made so much sense, and it helped make me more comfortable because I ended up coming to Barnum to play a jam initially just to kind of like see what was going on before I went down to play the jam with you. And that was like maybe a week earlier or so, but it made total sense because it's just like, if this person's singing and doing their stuff, don't distract them with some weird ass soloing,
Noodle between the verses, not during the verses, Yeah.
It's so weird that like this is stuff that like was, new to me within the last few years, and it's just kind of crazy where you're like, oh, this makes sense, and I don't know how it didn't make sense beforehand, but sometimes I think it takes the right person showing you or giving you an example to
and just time spent, I mean one of the things that everyone does when they progress as a musician is they learn to be more tasteful, because there was definitely numerous years in my career into which I wasn't very tasteful, but like with the Republic, when you're the only guitar player, you can afford to not be tasteful. Like no one has to be tasteful when you're a 3-piece, because you're the ones making the noise, and you almost have to be like less tasteful because you have to accommodate for the fact that there's only 3 of you up there making the noise, And then I remember I joined Cheap Drinks, which was a cover band here in Fort Dodge, and that was the first band I ever played in with another guitar player, and Chris Carr was in that band, and I remember there was one show because there was 3 guitar players in that band.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one show Sean Minikis was in that band, and he was taking a solo, and I was just doing whatever, but playing too loud, and I remember Chris like calls over to me, he's like, hey. It's like, what? He's like, quiet down. And I was like, huh. And that was like the first time that ever happened to me, where I was like, oh yeah, I guess I am being really loud and someone's taking a solo, And then from that, that stuck with me like for the rest of my life. Like if someone's taking a solo, I play quieter. You don't just play normal, you play quieter generally.
Yep.
And so, yeah, just gotta know how to stay out of the way. When it's your time to stay out of the way. I could be quiet with the best of them, so at this point.
It's one of those crazy things, though. Like how much of this stuff we learn kind of on the fly while doing things, because that's not something you're going to watch a YouTube video and someone's going to tell you. There's nobody like, this is the proper etiquette at a jam night, and like, just make sure you have fun, but don't try to get in the way, like,
but not too much fun.
There's none of that going on, but it's one of those things. I think the funnest part about playing jam nights is staying out of the way until somebody gives you the nod, or even if like you're like, I've been to jam nights with you where I've been the one playing, generally saying, I would say playing the song and singing and stuff, but it's just like, Jeremy's going to play all the leads now. So when I just sit back and let you play all the leads, and then it's like you'd give me a nod. And it's like, oh, I get a lead on this too, and then you're just like, I'm in, you know. And it like when it's your chance to shine, it's really fun to get out there and do some stuff, you know. And it's one of the funnest things. Like you said, I never thought about it, but like becoming more tasteful with your music as you get a little bit older, you know, or your musical choices. I'm just trying to think. Like I've had so many like. Me sitting down in the basement with a jam track going, jamming, and it's like, dude, this sounded awesome. But then I also think like, man, if I had to sit and listen to this while someone was doing this, it's almost not awesome though, because of how
long it takes to layer everything and all that jazz.
Yeah, how nonsensical it starts to get after a while. You know, you're just like, is this solo even a solo? You're just bending one note like a lot, and then a little bit, and then a lot more.
I mean, you get in front of the right audience, there'll probably be someone who digs it, you know.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it comes back to knowing the audience and playing to the audience a little bit.
I mean, people still go to Fish concerts, so
that's true.
You know?
I mean, that's like
that gets pretty out there.
It does, and that's kind of like, I don't want to say that's kind of like what we do in Three Finger Betty, but it's like punch in the gut punk rock music, and then jam at the end. That's all like reminiscent of something that you would see at a Fish concert or something,
right.
or Widespread Panic or something along those lines.
For sure.
And it's kind of a weird send off to give everyone, but it's also kind of a testament to be like, you know, we can do more. You know, we can do other stuff.
Yeah, it's your little signature at the end of the show.
Yeah, and I mean, the crazy part about that was we did have one person contact us about the jams, and they're like, "Do you have more of these?" And it was like, "No." And they're like, "Well, if you could fill up like 2 or 3 hours with this, we'd hire you at a bar." And it's like, dude, we could be like one of those weird bands that never says anything on the mic but just plays like 3-hour shows.
Yeah, it's doable.
It's doable.
Yeah, if you can jam, you can jam. I mean, just pick a key and someone do something and see where it goes, you know.
And that's, I oddly enough, that actually works so well. I love like when I first figured out how to start doing that was some of the coolest times in my guitar playing life, where it's like you're starting to put all the pieces together for the first time and be able to go out on your own and jam stuff without having to like read a tab and be like, if I play 5/7, 5/7, 5/8, that'll sound good, you know. And then you could bend the 8 and that'll sound good, you know, without somebody telling you what sounds good. You can go out on your own and do it. That's probably the coolest thing ever. How did you get to that point in your life? Where was that something that you had lessons starting off, or did you partner up with the right people, or how did you learn how to, you know like, oh, this song's in this key, so I can do this, or I'm going to write something, and then you're like, these chords would sound good together because that's the key of A, or something. How did you figure any of that out?
I think probably the only thing that I could say that I have like any sort of natural talent on is probably an ear. I think I lean towards just having kind of a natural ear, I suppose, because I grew up in a household of 2 older sisters that were always singing and stuff, and you know, I would sing what they sang, and you know, I was used to being able to find the key that they were in and all that stuff. So it was a natural thing to just be able to sing. And you know, if you get to the point to where you can, the instrument in your hand, you can apply it just to a simple thing like your voice. If you sing a note and you can find that on the instrument, then you're pretty much there. You know, or that's at least the biggest step. You know, if you're there, then you can basically get to the point to where if you listen to a song, it's like, okay, the dominant note is this. No matter what else happens in the song, this is the note, and that's the key. I don't know what note that is, but let me find it. And if you can find it, it's like, okay, it's this note. Is it minor or major? And then that's the only thing that you got to figure out.
Yep.
And at that point, you know, you can just keep developing from that. You know, I lost interest in a lot of bands that I was into before I started playing guitar, because, you know, within like a month, I was figuring out how to play their songs, and it's like, oh man, this is all it is. And I was so disappointed because, you know, because it was like, ugh, you know, like there were so many bands like that now I'm embarrassed to say that I even liked, because you know, when I was younger, because it's like, oh man, once I figured out what they were doing and all that, it's like I couldn't do it anymore, you know.
That is one of the weirdest things about being a guitar player was I feel like that's almost like a red badge of courage we all have, that we have to like wear around and show everyone. It's like a scarlet letter almost, that you're like, oh man, I used to really be into this, and it's actually not hard to write music. And that's the thing, that's one of the things that puts me in this weird category where I like, every time I write anything, I'm like, this sounds like a That song, or like, this is almost exactly like the Ramones, and I'm not going to like put this out there because it's something that they could write, and they only played in 3 chords. I'm just generalizing horrendously by, talking about the Ramones like that. But it's one of those things where you start to figure out, like, it's really not that difficult. How come somebody else didn't do it? But it's like they're the ones that did it is the thing, So
Yeah, sure. I mean, they did it. No one else did it. So there's something to be said for that, And I gave up like straight up disliking per se bands a long time ago too. To where even if there's a band to where I can't stand what they put out, there's people that it makes them feel good,
Yeah.
and so there's something to be said for it. They're doing something for somebody, even if I think it's just shit.
Yeah.
Like someone's being made happy from it.
Yeah, well, that's when you realize, like, oh, what I have is an opinion, not a fact here.
Mm-hmm.
So, I probably should keep this closer to my chest and not just shout it from the rooftop like it's a fact or something.
Yeah.
I've definitely found myself guilty of that so much in my life that I almost don't want to admit it. I mean, there's so many bands that I used to crap on that I love now, and vice versa, just based on the simple fact that, like, I grew up listening to a lot of like punk music and stuff like that, and then you start to like get into metal, and you're like, oh, these guys are actually really good at the guitar,
Yeah.
But it's different strokes for different folks, It's also like the different point they're at in their life and what trips their trigger, what they grew up around, what what was popular when they were going through formative years, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I wish I liked everything like that. That'd be so great if every song you ever heard just rocked your world.
Oh my God, that'd be the
Like,
coolest.
I'd just be on cloud nine all the time, But
Yeah.
it just doesn't work that way, But
Yep.
that's fine.
That's also how wide the spectrum of music is. I mean, like, you can put a guitar in someone's hand, and the amount of different stuff that comes out is absolutely insane. I mean, just look at who all's around here and the different genres that are covered. I mean, it's pretty mind-blowing that it's like, you got a jazz band in Fort Dodge? Like, yeah, there's a jazz trio in Fort Dodge. And it's like, for real? Like, yeah, for real there is, And I mean, it just goes up and down the line. I think the thing that came to me was the better I got at guitar, the more I'd sit down and watch other people play and be like, I would have never thought of that. Like, it sounds so cool, and it doesn't look like it's out of my element to play something like that, but I would have never thought about that. And that's the thing that makes it cool for me, is the fact that people can play something that wouldn't be something that's in my wheelhouse, that I wouldn't normally think of or think I even enjoy, but then they're playing it, and it's like, dude, that's so cool because you're playing it, and it's right in front of my face. I would have never thought of trying that,
Yeah, no, that's the thing too, is no matter how good somebody gets on their instrument, if you have someone who sits in their bedroom for years and years and years and gets really good at whatever instrument they're playing, that's great, and they're probably technically proficient. But sometimes there's a lot more to playing than that. I mean, you can take one note and put it over one chord, and it's gonna sound okay, cool. And if you're in the middle of a solo and you play that one note over another chord, like just those notes combined, can make all the difference in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that it's hard to learn on your own, without playing with anybody,
Yeah, like
and sometimes it's simple, like you said. It's like, oh man, I never would have thought of that. Like, that's not a hard line, but like, I might play that, sometimes over something like this. But the fact that that person did that right then and there, like, was like cool. That's like, it makes the song pop. There's something about it, catch your ear.
Yeah, I mean, it still gets me even to this day, because I don't want to say I'm like a good guitarist. I'm good, but I'm not anywhere near great at all. Like, I mean, I've got a lot of work to do to get even up to your level. Not trying to be like, oh, you're so good, but like, seriously. I mean, I was watching a Matt Woods video that he put out, and he's just like, here's like 4 or 5 different little riffs that, some of them are more difficult than others, but here's a handful of different riffs. If you want to try and learn them, go for it, And I watched some of the videos, and some of the easier riffs, it was just like, well, this is easy, but like, one of the things that was in here, I never would have thought to do. And I mean, not to get like musically technical, but it's like bending a minor 7 and then hitting back to the root note,
Precisely.
And it's like,
and when you do it in the song,
yeah, and that's something that was like really crazy. I was like, this sounds so good, and then I started loading up jam tracks to try to apply it to some places, and it's like, oh, it doesn't sound good here, so it doesn't always sound good. And that's one of those crazy things you start to realize, like, I never would have thought about trying this, but I mean, someone like a Matt or yourself, like, you eventually play so many songs, you start to absorb knowledge that you don't even know you're absorbing, probably, and
yeah, so sometimes it's just an hour spent can be just as good as, if you put 8 hours in of playing, that's probably about the equivalent of, an hour of actually just sitting there and woodshedding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it's more, you have to spend more time playing to maybe learn a certain technical ability or something like that. If you're not concentrating on it, it'll just be something that can happen at a certain point.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy because I think about like when I first started playing blues music and playing in pentatonics and just simpler stuff. It was pretty crazy because I didn't realize that you gain this knowledge that you don't know you have. Like I had played so many different Megadeth songs that were like, it's complex music, but if you look up the tabs, it's like anybody can play it if you try hard enough. So you just go for it and you do it. Then you start to realize like, man, a lot of these songs are like either an E minor or B minor, and you're just like, and then they're just applying these pentatonics so you can like fool a solo out of it where you normally wouldn't have been able to. And you're like, I didn't know this is what I was doing this whole time, but it actually, when you the stars start to align, it's kind of crazy.
Yep.
So some of that might come down to standing next to the right person to help you apply it. Did you ever have somebody that you like played a lot of guitar with that helped you along your way?
Just my friends. My first band, we all basically put together a band before any of us had any instruments. It was just like a ridiculous scenario. We're gonna be in a band. You're gonna play guitar. You're gonna play bass. You're gonna play drums. So now let's go buy our instruments and be really good at them, and then we're gonna be rock stars.
Yeah.
It was a very simple equation. And so there was 3 guitarists in that band, but I mean, it was what it was. I mean, it wasn't
was Molly
great.
Hatchet, wasn't it?
We were gonna be like, the next Cannibal Corpse or something like
okay,
that.
yeah.
Like we were gonna be like super heavy, And but the nice thing about when you have someone to learn with is just like there's like friendly competition, I guess. To where someone's like, oh, check out this riff. I just learned like the bridge to Fade to Black, and then it's like, oh man, show me how you do that. And I can't do that palm mute thing or whatever,
Yep.
And that was the basis of my drive, I guess. But everything that I've learned is pretty much through books.
Yeah. That's
So
pretty wild to say that. I mean, that's an antiquated tool at this point in the stage.
yeah,
Yeah.
Now online is so prevalent. There's so much information out there, but it's also problematic because anyone can put anything online.
Yeah. There's almost too much information.
Yeah.
I mean, like I get to the point where if I want to learn a concept, I got to watch like 5 or 6 videos until you find the right person explaining it the way that you want to hear it.
And at that point, it's not even worth the time to me. Like like if I have to learn a song, I'm just gonna bring it up on YouTube and listen to it and figure it out. Rather than like going and looking up tabs, because there's so many, like almost always there's something wrong in the tab that I find online or something like that. Almost always, it almost never fails. So it's like, and then you have to hunt around for something that's right.
Yep.
By the time I spent all the time finding the right stuff, I could have just learned it by that time, so I don't even bother with it anymore.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, when I first started playing guitar, the internet was like in its infancy as far as like an information place like it is now. YouTube was around-ish. It was there but not there. And I mean, Ultimate Guitar was there, but it wasn't really like what it is now. And nowadays, like they've integrated so much stuff where you can almost put like Guitar Pro type stuff in there where you can play along with the song almost as if it was like karaoke style, and it's just like, here's the notes to hit just hit them when the line gets there and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are reputable sources online and everything, but I guess on the flip side to it too, I also find just figuring out a song to be a good exercise in general.
Yeah.
Like keeps you on your toes, keeps the knife sharpened, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
in the kitchen.
That's not a skill everyone has though, too. I mean, that's like I can figure out some songs, but other songs it's like I got no clue, and then I got to watch a playthrough or something to kind of get, oh, your hands are over here. That means you're playing this way, and I can get it from there.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a pretty firm believer that it's teachable and applicable with the majority of people. Like I would say, like in the 90 percentile. I think the 90 percentile of people, if they spend enough time with an instrument and actually spending enough time to like accrue that ability, I think it's doable. Some people are going to have to spend a lot more time than other people, just based off of where they're starting from. And at that point, you have to decide how much time do I really want to spend accruing this ability. Is it worth my time, or is it just easier to go find something online or buy a book or something like that.
Yep.
So it's all just time management, what someone has to give to it.
So, now that we've got all this information picked out of you, and we talked about how you came back and only had the one show, I'm sure you're taking bookings again, playing shows.
Yeah, June's pretty booked up, so everything's pretty much back to normal now.
Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty dicey there for a while.
Brutal Republic Facebook page for all the events, I'm assuming?
Yep.
All right.
Yep. It should be up to date.
Nice,
as far
cool.
as I can remember.
So I'm also assuming if anybody wants to try and contact you for a booking, that might be a good place to start.
Yep.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
So you got it there. Like I said, I've known you for a long time. Like when I was in my most infant stages of playing guitar, you invited me to play a show, and I pretty much just couldn't based on my talent level at the time, but it was cool to come back and actually be able to play at a jam night with you, be one of the quote unquote host musicians.
Absolutely.
It's tons of fun, man. I'm glad that you're around, and I'm glad you have the ability to do all the things you do and invite as many people. And like I said, I go out and I've been trying to get to more shows, and it seems like almost every show I go to that's around the Fort Dodge area, if you're not on it and you're not playing somewhere, you're there watching. I mean, it's you're one of the biggest supporters of music around the area, so
I try to be.
Yeah, man.
I really just enjoy it. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it. So
yeah, I mean, it's probably second nature to you. So
it's not work by any means. So,
awesome. That's good to hear. It's one of those things that you're not out there because it's like this is the right thing to do. It's just like it's just what you like doing, and that's really cool.
I like music.
Sweet. Well, Jeremy, we've covered. Well, I guess we're pretty close to an hour actually. So, Brutal Republic Facebook page, otherwise Lone Tree Revival Facebook page as well. They can find some more of your stuff there. You're in that band as well. Cool band. Still haven't seen them live. Even when you came to Humboldt the one time, I think I actually slept through it. I went to take a nap and then woke up at like 11 and was like, no, just missed it. So
it happens.
Oh man, so I'm hoping to see you guys out there at a show sometime soon and get a booking, somewhere nearby, because I can't wait to see you guys there. But dude, it's always fun to sit down and talk with you and see what's going on and stuff. So I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Oh baby, another good episode with Jeremy. I like sitting down and talking with him. He seems to always have something pretty good to say. As far as his take on playing and his take on what's going on in the scene and things like that. He's always had a pretty level head on him, so that's pretty cool. I like to sit down and talk with him and just kind of banter some things back and forth. One thing I do have to say is I haven't seen him play with Lone Tree Revival yet, but this weekend there's a chance. Friday, which is tomorrow, there's going to be, that's Friday, June 12th. If anybody's listening to this late, you might have already missed it, but Friday, June 12th, at 6 o'clock, they're going to be playing at Soldier Creek Winery in Fort Dodge. So if you haven't seen Lone Tree Revival, which I have missed my opportunity to do that a couple of times, this is the shot. I hope I can make it. I'm going to try to do it if I can. I know I have a band practice that night, so it might be a little difficult, but we'll see what's going on. That show is 6 o'clock till 8 o'clock, Friday, June 12th at Soldier Creek Winery. So check it out. I'll have some links down below to Lone Tree Revival if you want to go to their page and shoot them a like and check it out. Like I said, this is one of those bands that is unconventional. It's not just four guys playing guitar and bass and just being loud. This is some of the best musicians in northern Iowa combining all their talents into one very awesome band. I've seen videos, I haven't seen them live, and I know it's a special thing. So check it out if you can. That's this Friday, June 12th. Vineyard Vibrations is what they call it. It's at Soldier Creek Winery in Fort Dodge. So check that show out. Like I said, if you want more information, scroll down to the description section, find the Lone Tree Revival link that I have for Facebook, and it'll be there. Hey, so check that show out. It's going to be tons of fun. I hope I can make it. If I can't, someone take lots of pictures and videos and share them on Facebook for me so I can check it out. Jeremy, hey, thanks for sitting down talking with me about all sorts of different things. We went through like the gear talk segment, we went through playing different shows with different types of bands. We talked about the coronavirus. We talked about going to Texas and playing shows, and just kind of expanding yourself as a musician altogether. And that's something that I feel like Jeremy's done a pretty good job of in his, I don't want to say career, but in his career. It's music has been like the most important thing to him pretty much his entire life. So it's really cool to be able to sit down and chat with people like that play shows, almost every single weekend, always, and sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, 4 times a week. It's pretty wild. So hey, if you like what you got in Jeremy, check out Vineyard Vibrations this weekend. Otherwise, you can check him out in Brutal Republic, Acoustic Republic, whatever he's playing in. He's, like I said, he plays tons of shows. I saw him at a jam night recently, and he played a couple tunes, and it was, it's just fun to see him play. He's been one of those people that I've known about since I first started playing guitar, and he's always been really nice to me, and he's never been one to judge people based on their talent levels. Not that anybody really is, but he's always been really inviting, and he gave me my first shot at playing at a jam night, and it's just really fun. It's really fun to be able to sit down and talk with him and know there's people like that out there that are just constantly grinding every single week and giving back to the community, not just the community around them, but their peers in the music scene as well. So hats off to you, Jeremy. I really appreciate it. And, hats off to everybody that's listening. I appreciate you guys listening every single week. If you need more information on what's going on Audible Farm, you can check out audiblefarm.com. And we've got links to the social media, the YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, everything's there, as well as links to where you can listen. You can listen directly from the website as well. So check that out. I really appreciate everybody checking out the website. We've got t-shirts and sweatshirts still available for sale. If you want some of those, shoot us a message somehow, and we'll get it all lined up. So that's that. I really appreciate it. Another thing I really appreciate is Couchtown Coffee. Couchtown Coffee sponsored us for like a year straight now almost, and it couldn't be better. I really enjoy the coffee. Thanks, Andrew, for sponsoring us. You can save 20% this week if you make an order. Go back to the intro and listen to that code word, and save yourself some money on some of the best coffee you will ever have, guaranteed. Hey, it's been a really good time sitting down talking with people over Skype, but it was also really good to be able to sit down with somebody one-on-one in person and converse with them. I feel like it adds a little bit more of a personal feel to it. It's a little bit difficult to do interviews over Skype. I mean, I think I pulled it off pretty well for a couple months there, but like I said, nothing beats face-to-face contact with somebody. So hats off to you, Jeremy, for joining me this week. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your evening to sit down and talk with me. And hey, if you guys like what you hear here, check it out anywhere you want, subscribe, share it with your friends, and I really appreciate it. Now that venues are opening back up, I'm starting to stash some stickers back at venues that I go to. That was like one of my little things I used to do back in the day, was I'd go to a show and then I'd stick some stickers and hide them somewhere, either by the business card section or on bulletin boards or things like that. So if you check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, things like that, you might see us posting about how I've left some stickers places. So if you see any of those stickers lying around at any of the venues you go to go check out shows, snag one up. They're free. It's for you. Recently I went to the Junkyard in Barnum to a jam night, and those are every Tuesday night at the Junkyard in Barnum, Iowa. And man, every time I leave stickers there, I come back about a month later, and most of them, if not all of them, are gone. So I stuck some more there. So next time you're at the Junkyard in Barnum for a bite to eat or a drink or maybe to enjoy some tunes, check it out. I left them on the bulletin board. So go to that bulletin board and snag a free sticker from us. Thanks to everybody for listening, and I want to say thanks once again to Jeremy, and thanks again to Couchtown. I will be back next week with another awesome episode, so check that one out. I'm still working on doing some stuff on the YouTube channel. I'm trying to find the best way to set up stuff for audio so it's not, ear piercing to listen to, because that's not justifiable in any sense. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to control my audio in the non-soundproofed room that I'm going to be doing my recording in. So we'll see how that turns out. I'm still working on quote-unquote new YouTube show that I'm going to be debuting hopefully sometime soon. I had a couple setbacks, and the audio is just not the greatest, but we'll get it figured out, and with some help from my friends. So I really appreciate everybody listening, and thanks to Jeremy for being a guest, and I will check everybody next week. Peace.